Hey there, welcome back. Get comfortable and settle in. Before we begin tonight, I want to take a moment. Thank you to everyone who keeps coming back, who uses these videos to rest, to sleep. Thank you. It's been a long journey through Hallownest together, and I'm grateful for every one of you. I'll be honest, after so many Hollow Knight videos, I'm starting to feel like we've covered most of what there is to cover. Not everything, but most of it. I love this game, but I don't want to keep telling the same stories, so we're thinking about exploring other indie games soon. Same calm format, same sleep-friendly style, just new worlds to wander through. If there's a game you'd like to hear about, leave it in the comments, and if you'd rather stick with Hollow Knight even if things start to feel familiar, let me know that too. But for now, let's return to Hallownest one more time. Adjust your pillow, pull your blanket close, and let the weight of the day begin to lift from your shoulders. Tonight, we're going to wander through hundreds of facts about one of the greatest games ever made, letting each piece of information flow into the next like water through ancient caverns. These are not theories or speculation. These are things we know, details confirmed through gameplay, developer interviews, and careful observation. Some of them you might know already. Others might surprise you. All of them are part of what makes Hollow Knight extraordinary. Close your eyes, let your breathing slow, and let the story carry you towards sleep. Hollow Knight was developed by Team Cherry, an independent game studio based in Adelaide, Australia. A city that most people outside of Australia probably could not point to on a map. Yet it became the birthplace of one of the most beloved games of the past decade. The studio was founded by Ari Gibson and William Pellon, two friends who had worked together on various smaller projects before deciding to create something more ambitious. Christopher Larkin joined as the composer, bringing his extraordinary musical talents to the project, and together these three people formed the entire core team that would create Hollow Knight. 3 people. That fact alone is remarkable when you consider the scope of what they achieved. Most games of comparable size and quality are made by teams of dozens or even hundreds. Team Cherry did it with 3. The game began its life as a Kickstarter project back in 2014, when crowdfunding was still a relatively new way for independent developers to bring their visions to life. Team Cherry set a funding goal of $35,000 Australian dollars, which at the time was roughly equivalent to about 27,000 US dollars, a modest sum that would allow them to dedicate themselves to development full-time for a while. They exceeded this goal, eventually raising over 57,000 Australian dollars from more than 2,000 backers who believed in their vision. The success of the campaign allowed them to expand the scope of the game significantly, adding more areas, more bosses, more content than they had originally planned. What started as a smaller project grew into something vast. Let your shoulders drop. You might be holding tension there without realizing it. Let it go now. And let the story of this game's creation wash over you like gentle rain. The original vision for Hollow Knight was much smaller than what was eventually released, perhaps a quarter of the size of the final product. A tighter and more focused experience that would have still been impressive, but would not have achieved the legendary status the game now holds. As development continued and funding increased, Team Cherry kept adding content, kept expanding the world, kept finding new ideas they wanted to explore. The game was delayed multiple times as a result, pushing past its original release date as the team refused to ship something they were not completely satisfied with. This dedication to quality over schedule is rare in the gaming industry, where financial pressures often force developers to release games before they are truly ready. Team Cherry had the luxury of independence, answering only to themselves and their backers, and they used that freedom to create something extraordinary. The name Hollow Knight refers not to the player character, but to a specific figure within the game's lore, a tragic being whose story sits at the heart of everything that happens in Hallownest. The small knight you control, the one with the white mask and the dark body, is a different entity entirely, one of many vessels created by the Pale King in his desperate attempt to save his kingdom. This distinction between the Hollow Knight and the knight you play is crucial to understanding the story, and many players do not fully grasp it until they have spent hours exploring the world and piecing together the fragments of lore scattered throughout. The game never explains this directly. It trusts you to figure it out, to pay attention, to connect the dots yourself. Hollow Knight was released on February 24th, 2017 for Microsoft Windows, emerging into a gaming landscape that was hungry for exactly what it offered. It later came to macOS and Linux in April of that same year, and then to the Nintendo Switch on June 12th, 2018, where it found an enormous audience and became one of the best-selling indie games on the platform. The portable nature of the Switch suited the game perfectly, allowing players to explore Hallownest during commutes, in bed before sleep, or anywhere else they happened to be. The game also came to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, eventually reaching every major gaming platform and finding millions of players across all of them. These sales figures tell a story of remarkable success. The game sold over 500,000 copies within its first year, a number that would be considered a triumph for most indie games. By 2019, it had sold over 2.8 million copies, and the numbers kept climbing. The game eventually surpassed 3 million copies sold across all platforms, generating enough revenue to ensure Team Cherry's financial security and fund their future projects. For a game made by 3 people in Adelaide, these numbers are almost absurd. They speak to the quality of what Team Cherry created, to the word-of-mouth enthusiasm that spread through gaming communities, to the way Hollow Knight captured something that players desperately wanted. Feel your body growing heavier now, sinking into the mattress, supported and safe. The story of Team Cherry's success is a comforting one, a reminder that passion and dedication can still triumph in an industry often dominated by massive corporations. Team Cherry released 4 free content packs after the game's initial launch, each one adding significant new content without any additional cost to players. In an era when many games nickel and dime their audiences with paid downloadable content, Team Cherry gave away hours of additional gameplay simply because they wanted to make their game better. Hidden Dreams was released on August 3rd, 2017, adding 2 new boss fights in the form of the White Defender and Grey Prince Zote, along with the ability to place dream gates that allow fast travel to any location where you set them. The Grim Troop followed on October 26th, 2017, adding an entirely new questline involving a travelling circus of nightmare creatures, complete with some of the best boss fights in the entire game. Lifeblood came on April 20th, 2018, focusing on quality of life improvements and optimization, while also adding the Hive Knight boss. And finally, Godmaster was released on August 23rd, 2018, originally announced under the name Gods and Glory, adding the Godseeker content including the Hall of Gods and the Pantheons, along with new endings that expanded the story in fascinating ways. The world of Hollow Knight is called Hallownest, an underground kingdom populated entirely by bugs and other arthropods, a civilization that rose to impossible heights and fell to unimaginable depths. The game never explicitly states where Hallownest is located in relation to the surface world, leaving players to wonder about the broader context of this underground realm. Is it beneath a forest? A city? An ocean? We do not know, and perhaps it does not matter. Hallownest is its own world, complete and self-contained, with its own history and culture and tragedy. The bugs who live there do not seem to know or care about what exists above. Their world is the caverns, the tunnels, the vast underground spaces that stretch in every direction. The ruler of Hallownest was the Pale King, a being of immense power whose light gave consciousness to the bugs who lived in darkness. Before his arrival, these creatures existed in a state of instinctual harmony, bound together by the light of an ancient god called the Radiance, a moth deity whose brilliance connected every mind in a shared awareness. The bugs did not think as individuals under the Radiance's light. They did not dream their own dreams or hold their own memories. They were part of something larger, drops of water in an endless ocean, and there was a kind of peace in that unity, even if it was not freedom as we understand it. Let your breathing find its own rhythm now, slow and natural, like the pulse of the world itself. The history of Hallownest is long and complex, but you do not need to hold on to every detail. Just let it flow past you. The Pale King was not always the small crowned figure that ruled from the White Palace. He was originally a worm, a higher being of immense size, a creature so vast that it seemed more like a feature of the landscape than a living thing. The cast-off shell that can be found in the kingdom's edge is the remains of his former body, a husk so enormous that you can walk through it like a tunnel, and it stretches across a significant portion of the area. The Pale King shed this form to take on something smaller, something that could interact with the bugs he wished to uplift, and this transformation was unprecedented. Higher beings do not typically diminish themselves. They do not give up power willingly. Yet the Pale King did exactly that, for reasons the game never fully explains. Perhaps he saw potential in the bugs below. Perhaps he was tired of being vast and unknowable. Perhaps he simply wanted to create something, to build rather than merely exist. The Pale King's light was different from the Radiance's light. Where she offered unity, he offered individuality. Where she provided belonging, he provided awareness. The bugs who accepted his gift gained minds of their own, the ability to think and create and dream as separate beings. They built cities of stunning beauty, developed art and music and philosophy, created laws and customs and traditions. They became a civilization, and at the centre of it all sat the Pale King, worshipped as a god, beloved as a father, trusted as a protector. The City of Tears rose from the caverns with its elegant spires and eternal rain. The crystal peak glittered with gems that the bugs learned to harvest and shape. Everywhere you looked, civilization flourished under the Pale King's guidance. But consciousness is not a simple gift, and the Pale King's light came with costs that would not become apparent until much later. With the ability to think came the ability to suffer. With awareness came anxiety. With memory came grief. The bugs could now contemplate their own mortality, could fear the unknown, could feel the weight of existence pressing down upon them. They had gained everything, and they had lost something too, though most of them never knew what they had lost. The Radiance knew. She felt her children turning away from her light, felt their minds closing to her touch, felt herself being forgotten. And forgetting, for a god, is a kind of death. The infection that plagues Hallownest throughout the game is the Radiance's vengeance, her fury made manifest, spreading through the dreams of creatures who no longer remember her name. When the bugs forgot her in favour of the Pale King, she did not simply fade away as he had hoped. She festered, she raged, and when she finally broke free from the prison of forgetting, her vengeance was terrible. The infection began in dreams, bugs falling asleep and finding themselves bathed in orange light. A warmth that felt almost like love but was actually hatred. Those touched by the infection lost themselves, their minds emptied of everything except the Radiance's will, their eyes glowing orange with her fury. They became husks, puppets, bodies animated by a god's rage, and they spread the infection to others through violence and through dreams. Feel the weight of your blanket pressing gently against you, warm and comforting. The tragedy of Hallownest is heavy, but you are safe here, removed from it, listening from a place of peace. The Pale King needed a solution to the infection, and in his desperation he conceived of the most terrible idea in Hallownest's history. He understood the void, the primordial emptiness that existed before light, before thought, before anything, pooling in the deepest places of the world like black water. He believed that if he could create a being of pure void, a vessel without consciousness, without will, without any inner life at all, he could trap the Radiance inside it. She would rage against the walls of her prison, but there would be nothing for her to corrupt, no mind for her to infect, no dreams for her to invade. She would be sealed away forever, and Hallownest would be saved. It was a logical plan. It was an elegant plan. It was a plan that required the Pale King to create children for the sole purpose of testing whether they were empty enough to be useful, and discarding them when they failed. The Pale King and his queen, the White Lady, produced thousands of children in pursuit of this goal. These were not ordinary offspring. They were born into the void itself, shaped by the darkness, given forms of shadow and emptiness. They were called vessels, containers designed to hold nothing, and each one was tested against a single, impossible criterion. Was it truly hollow? No mind to think, no will to break, no voice to cry suffering. Any sign of inner life, a flicker of desire, a hint of fear, a moment of hope meant failure, and failure meant death, or something close to it. The failed vessels were discarded in the abyss, the deepest place in Hallownest, where the void pooled like an ocean of darkness. They piled up at the bottom of that endless black, shells upon shells upon shells, thousands of small bodies, each one a child, each one tested and found wanting, each one thrown away. If you descend into the abyss in the game, you will see them. They cling to the walls, they float in the void sea, they pile on the floors in drifts like black snow. The scale of this tragedy is almost impossible to comprehend. We're not talking about a handful of failed experiments. We're talking about thousands of children, created and discarded by their own parents in pursuit of a single perfect specimen. The cruelest detail is this. The vessels were supposed to be hollow, incapable of desire or hope. Yet when the Pale King came to select his chosen child, the others reached for him. They climbed over each other, stretched their small arms upward, strained toward the light above. They wanted to be chosen. They wanted to matter. They wanted to live. The very act of wanting proved they were not truly empty, and yet they wanted anyway because something always stirs in the void, some spark of existence that refuses to be extinguished. Eventually, one vessel seemed to meet the criteria. It showed no signs of consciousness, no flickers of desire, no evidence of inner life. It stood perfectly still while its siblings reached and climbed and hoped. The Pale King named it the Hollow Knight and took it from the abyss to be the salvation of his kingdom. But the Hollow Knight was not truly hollow. In a moment of weakness, as he led his chosen child away from the abyss, the Pale King showed it affection. He reached out and took its hand, a gesture of fatherly love, perhaps unconscious, perhaps deliberate, and in that moment something stirred in the vessel that was supposed to be empty. A bond formed, an attachment grew. The Hollow Knight was cracked by kindness, given something to feel by the very being who needed it to feel nothing. Let that tragedy settle into you like sediment at the bottom of a still pond. The Pale King's greatest weakness was his capacity for love. The thing that makes him sympathetic is the thing that doomed his kingdom. He could not be the cold, calculating god that his plan required. He was too human in the end, despite being anything but. The sealing proceeded anyway because what else could be done? The Hollow Knight was placed in the Black Egg Temple, a structure built specifically for this purpose, and the Radiance was sealed inside it. 3 powerful bugs volunteered to become dreamers, binding their sleeping minds to the temple's locks, strengthening the seal with their eternal slumber. Monomon the teacher was one of these dreamers, a scholar and keeper of knowledge, one of the wisest beings in Hallownest, who fell asleep in her archive surrounded by the accumulated wisdom of the kingdom. Lurien the Watcher was another, devoted to the Pale King beyond question, who fell asleep in his spire overlooking the City of Tears, his single eye forever fixed on the city he loved. Hera the Beast was the third, Queen of Deepnest, ruler of the Spider Tribe, who agreed to become a dreamer in exchange for a child. The Pale King fathered a daughter with her, and that daughter was Hornet, the warrior princess who appears throughout the game, half-sibling to the Vessels, though born naturally rather than created in the void. The infection receded after the sealing. The kingdom enjoyed years of peace, perhaps decades, perhaps centuries. The citizens believed they had been saved, that their king's wisdom had delivered them from destruction. But a cracked vessel cannot hold forever, and the cracks were there from the beginning. The Radiance's influence began to leak out, seeping through the imperfect seal, spreading once again through dreams. The infection returned, stronger than before, and this time there was no solution. The Pale King's plan had failed. Hallownest fell into ruin, its citizens succumbing one by one to the orange light, its cities emptying, its civilization crumbling. By the time you arrive as the knight, the kingdom is in its death throes, a beautiful corpse slowly being consumed by the very thing it tried to contain. Your body is so relaxed now, sinking deeper into comfort with each breath. The fall of Hallownest happened long ago. There's nothing you need to do about it tonight. Tonight is for rest. The knight you control is one of the vessels, one of the thousands created and discarded in the abyss, somehow surviving when so many others did not. How it escaped the abyss is never explained. Why it returned to Hallownest after all this time is left ambiguous. Something called it back, some connection to the kingdom it never truly knew, some purpose it may not even understand. The knight is silent throughout the game, never speaking, never expressing emotion directly, yet its actions speak volumes. It forms connections with the bugs it meets. It earns respect from warriors. It makes choices that matter. whether the knight is truly hollow, as the Pale King intended, or whether something stirs within it, some spark of consciousness, some whisper of self, is one of the central mysteries of the game, and Team Cherry has never provided a definitive answer. The game contains over 40 boss fights, a staggering number that far exceeds most games in the Metroidvania genre. Each boss has distinct patterns, distinct tells, distinct strategies for victory, and learning to defeat them is a process of observation and adaptation, dying and trying again, gradually understanding the rhythm of each fight until you can execute it flawlessly. The first boss most players encounter is the False Knight, an imposing figure in heavy armour who seems far too powerful for the early game. But the False Knight is not what he appears to be. Beneath that stolen armour is a maggot, a small creature who took the armour from a fallen Huskguard to protect his siblings, the other maggots who live in the Forgotten Crossroads. His story is tragic in its own small way, a being who wanted to be more than he was, who donned armour too large for him and tried to be a protector. When you defeat him, the armour cracks and the maggot inside is revealed, pathetic and desperate, and you almost feel sorry for him despite the difficulty he caused you. The Mantis Lords are often cited as the fight where Hollow Knight's combat truly clicks for players, the moment when everything comes together and you understand what the game is asking of you. This is a 3-phase battle against the rulers of the Mantis tribe, proud warriors who test your worthiness through combat. The first phase is one-on-one, a duel against a single Mantis Lord whose attacks are fast and precise. The second phase adds a second opponent, and you must track 2 enemies at once, dodging attacks that come from different directions. The third phase has all 3 attacking in coordination, a whirlwind of blades that requires constant movement and perfect timing. When you finally defeat them, something wonderful happens. They bow to you. The other Mantis warriors in the village, who were hostile before, now stand aside and let you pass. They will never attack you again. You have proven yourself worthy, and the entire tribe acknowledges it. This is not just a gameplay reward. It is a narrative reward, a moment of respect between warriors that makes you feel like you have accomplished something meaningful in the world. Let your mind drift through these battles, not as challenges to overcome, but as memories to appreciate. The bosses of Hallownest are formidable, but they are also beautiful, each one a work of art in motion. The Hollow Knight itself is the most emotionally complex boss fight in the game, perhaps in any game. When you finally confront it in the Black Egg Temple, you are not facing a villain, you're facing a sibling, a being who was chosen to save everything and failed through no fault of its own. The Hollow Knight has been containing the Radiance for centuries, suffering endlessly as her infection tears at its mind while it struggles to maintain the seal. Its attacks during the fight are erratic and desperate, the movements of a being in agony rather than a warrior in control. At one point it stabs itself with its own nail, trying to help you, trying to end its own torment. The music is mournful, the visuals are tragic, and the implications are devastating. The Hollow Knight did everything right. It tried so hard to be what it was supposed to be, and it was not enough, because nothing could have been enough, because the Pale King's love had cracked it before the sealing even began. The game's multiple endings reflect the complexity of its themes, offering different resolutions to the central conflict, without declaring any of them definitively correct. In the simplest ending, you defeat the Hollow Knight and take its place, becoming the new vessel, the new container for the Radiance. The cycle continues. The infection is sealed away, but not destroyed. Eventually you too will crack and the whole tragedy will repeat. This ending is melancholy but not hopeless, a temporary solution that buys the world more time even if it does not save it. The second ending requires the void heart, a charm obtained by descending to the very bottom of the abyss and confronting the truth of your origin. With the void heart equipped, Hornet will intervene during the Hollow Knight fight, holding your sibling down and allowing you to enter its dream, where you confront the Radiance directly. Defeating her destroys the source of the infection, ending the threat forever, though the Knight is consumed by the void in the process, absorbed into something larger, losing its individual existence. The third ending, unlocked through the Godmaster content, shows the void itself rising up as a massive entity, consuming the Radiance utterly, devouring her, making her part of the darkness she opposed. The implications of this ending are ambiguous. The void has awakened as something new, and whether that is good or bad or simply different is left for the player to decide. The characters who populate Hallownest are essential to why the game resonates so deeply. Personalities that feel genuinely human despite being bugs, beings whose fates matter to you because the game has made you care about them. Quirrell is perhaps the most beloved NPC in the game, a scholar and adventurer who appears throughout your journey, always in places of significance, always with something thoughtful to say. He is kind and curious, a gentle presence in a world full of danger, and his story unfolds gradually as you encounter him in different locations. Quirrell came to Hallownest because something called him, a connection he did not understand, and as you progress, you learn that he was once a student of Monomon the teacher, one of the dreamers. He carries her mask, though he does not remember why, and his journey is a journey of rediscovery, of piecing together a past that was taken from him. When you finally encounter Quirrell at the Blue Lake, after everything is over, he is at peace. He sits by the water, his nail beside him, looking out at the rain that falls eternally in this place. He speaks of his journey, of the beauty he has seen, of the satisfaction of finding what he was looking for. And then, if you leave and return, he is gone. Only his nail remains, stuck in the ground by the lake's edge. The game never tells you what happened to Quirrell. It does not need to. The implication is clear, and it is heartbreaking. Feel the gentle weight of that sadness, not as a burden, but as a testament to how much you can care about a character in a video game. Quirrell's story is over, and he found peace at the end. That is more than many can say. Hornet is another character who leaves a lasting impression. The daughter of the Pale King and Hera the Beast, a princess of two worlds, a warrior of incredible skill. When you first encounter her in Greenpath, she is hostile, testing you, determining whether you are worthy of the task ahead. Her attacks are fast and relentless, and many players struggle against her, dying repeatedly before finally learning her patterns. But as the game progresses, Hornet becomes something like an ally. She appears at crucial moments, offering guidance and challenge in equal measure, her dialogue sharp and direct, the words of someone who has no patience for weakness but respects strength. She calls you Little Ghost, a term that is dismissive and affectionate at the same time, and by the end of the game she is willing to risk herself to give you a chance at victory. Hornet's story is one of duty and sacrifice. She was born from a bargain, her mother trading her freedom to become a dreamer in exchange for a child, And Hornet has lived her entire life in the shadow of that bargain, protecting the seals, guarding the kingdom, doing what must be done. She is not soft, but she is not cruel. She's simply someone who understands the weight of responsibility. The world of Hallownest is divided into distinct regions, each with its own atmosphere, its own enemies, its own secrets to discover. The Forgotten Crossroads serve as the first major area most players explore, a network of tunnels and caverns that introduces the basic mechanics of exploration and combat. The name is significant. These are the Forgotten Crossroads, a place that was once important, a hub of travel and commerce now abandoned and decaying. The bugs you encounter here are husks, shells of what they once were, going through motions that no longer have meaning. As you progress through the game, the crossroads change. The infection spreads, transforming the area, making it more dangerous. Enemies become stronger. New threats appear. The place you thought you knew becomes unfamiliar and hostile, a reminder that the infection is not static but growing, spreading, consuming. Greenpath is a revelation after the muted tones of the crossroads, a lush area filled with plant life where the music swells with energy and wonder. The colours are bright greens and soft yellows, and after the darkness below, Greenpath feels like emerging into sunlight. This is where you first encounter Hornet, where you find the moth-wing cloak that grants the dash ability, where you begin to understand how vast Hallownest truly is. The area is home to Un, a higher being, a god of the natural world who created much of the plant life in the kingdom. Un can be found sleeping in the Lake of Un deep within Greenpath, a massive slug-like creature whose presence suggests that the Pale King was not the only divine being to take an interest in this underground world. The City of Tears is where Hollow Knight's art direction reaches its peak, a vast underground metropolis built in a cavern where water constantly drips from above, creating an eternal rain that gives the city its name. The architecture is elegant and imposing, spires and bridges and grand buildings that speak of a civilization at its height, and the colour palette is blue and grey and silver, the colours of melancholy, of memory, of things that were beautiful once and are beautiful still but in a different way now. The rain catches the light and sparkles. The windows of the buildings glow with warmth that no longer has anyone to warm. The music is one of the most memorable tracks in the game, piano notes falling like the rain itself, creating an atmosphere of gentle sorrow that stays with you long after you leave. The City of Tears was the capital of Hallownest, the centre of its civilization, and walking through its empty streets, you feel the weight of everything that was lost. Let the image of the City of Tears rest in your mind, rain falling endlessly, beautiful and sad, a monument to what once was. Your breathing is slow and deep now, carrying you towards sleep. Deepness is the area that players dread, a nightmare realm of spiders and darkness that makes even experienced gamers uncomfortable. Everything about Deepness is designed to unsettle, to create a sense of vulnerability and dread that persists throughout your time there. The darkness is the first thing you notice, deeper than anywhere else in Hallownest. Your vision limited to a small circle around the night. You cannot see what is coming. You cannot prepare for threats. You can only react, and often reacting is not enough. The sounds are worse than the darkness, chittering and clicking and the rustle of many legs on stone, audio designed to make your skin crawl. You hear the enemies before you see them, and your imagination fills in details that reality might not match. The creatures here are hostile and alien, spiders and things that look like spiders. Bodies that bend in ways that feel wrong, too many legs, too many eyes. Hera the Beast ruled this place, and her bargain with the Pale King was the only thing that brought deepness into the kingdom's fold. Even then, the relationship was uneasy, a truce rather than a true alliance. The Nosk is the most disturbing enemy in deepness, perhaps in the entire game, a creature that mimics the appearance of other beings to lure prey into its lair. When you first see it, it appears to look like the night, a familiar shape in the darkness, and you follow it deeper into the tunnels, curious about this apparent reflection of yourself. And then it reveals its true form, a spider thing that has been using your hope against you, and the fight that follows is deeply unsettling. Nosk's lair contains the remains of many victims, including what appears to be a corpse wearing a mask similar to the Knight's, suggesting that Nosk has killed other vessels, that you're not the first to be lured by this trick. The Crystal Peak is a mining area filled with crystals and old equipment, a place where bugs once worked to extract precious gems from the caverns. The crystals glow with inner light, pink and purple and white, creating an aesthetic that is both industrial and magical, and the miners are still there, still working, even though the infection has taken their minds. They swing their pickaxes at nothing, following routines that no longer have meaning, and the machinery still operates, conveyor belts carrying crystals to destinations that no longer exist. It is a portrait of labour continuing past the point of purpose, work for its own sake, habit outlasting reason. The Crystal Heart ability is found here, allowing you to charge and launch yourself horizontally at great speed, an ability that opens up new areas and new possibilities throughout the rest of the game. The royal waterways are the sewers of Hallownest, the infrastructure that kept the kingdom functioning, and they are exactly as unpleasant as you might expect. The area is wet and dark and filled with creatures that evoke disgust, bloated flukes that float through the murky water and spawn smaller versions of themselves when killed. But even here, there is story, there is character, there is something worth finding. The Dung Defender guards a section of the waterways, one of the 5 great knights of Hallownest, warriors who served the Pale King with distinction. His real name is Ogrim, and unlike the other great knights, he is still alive and active, still protecting this unglamorous place even though there is nothing left to protect. The Dung Defender is a surprisingly joyful character, laughing as he fights, clearly enjoying the combat, treating your battle as a friendly sparring match rather than a life or death struggle. His positivity is infectious, a bright spot in the darkness of the waterways, and defeating him does not feel like a victory over an enemy, but like earning the respect of a friend. The other great knights have their own stories, pieced together through exploration and item descriptions. Hegemol was a massive knight whose armour was stolen by the maggot who became the false knight. His body never found. Isma created a grove in the royal waterways where her tears grant immunity to acid, and she appears to have transformed into a plant-like being, her humanity traded for something else. Drea was the protector of the White Lady, and her body can be found outside the White Lady's chamber, having died defending her queen. Zima, also known as the Grey Mourner, is still alive but grief-stricken, asking you to deliver a delicate flower to the grave of her lover in the Queen's Gardens, one of the most challenging quests in the game because the flower breaks if you take any damage, and you must carry it across a significant portion of the map. Your eyelids are growing heavy now. Let them close if they have not already. The regions of Hallownest will be there when you wake, waiting to be explored again. The abyss is the deepest place in Hallownest, the birthplace of the vessels, the source of the void, and descending into it is a journey into darkness, both literal and metaphorical. The light fades as you go deeper until there is nothing but black, and the platforms become sparse, the falls become longer, the sense of isolation becomes overwhelming. You're going somewhere you are not meant to go, somewhere that holds secrets better left buried. At the bottom, you find them, the vessels. Thousands of them piled on the floor, clinging to the walls, floating in the void sea. Each one was a child. Each one was tested and found wanting. Each one was thrown away. The birthplace is at the very bottom, the place where the vessels were created, and a memory here reveals the night's origin, shows the vessels reaching upward, hoping to be chosen, shows the Pale King selecting one and taking its hand, shows you, or a version of you, left behind with all the others, watching as your sibling ascends to a destiny you will never share. The White Palace exists in a dream, accessible only through the corpse of the Pale King in the palace grounds, and it is one of the most challenging areas in the game. The palace is beautiful, all white stone and golden light, the aesthetic of royalty and power, but it is also deadly, filled with saw blades and spikes that demand perfect precision. Why the Pale King designed his home this way is never explained. Perhaps he was paranoid, afraid of assassination. Perhaps the traps reflect his mental state, a mind obsessed with control. Perhaps he simply did not care about the safety of others. At the end of the White Palace, past all the traps and guards, you find the Pale King himself, sitting on his throne, slumped and still, dead. The scene is pathetic, a far cry from the godlike figure his subjects worshipped. He created a kingdom, gave consciousness to countless bugs, fathered thousands of children, and in the end, he died alone, his body left to rot in a dream. The path of pain is hidden within the White Palace, a secret area that represents the ultimate platforming challenge in the game. It is brutally difficult, requiring precision that borders on the impossible, and it has no checkpoints until the very end, meaning that if you die, you must start over from the beginning. Many players spend hours attempting to complete it. Many more never try at all. But for those who persevere, who push through the frustration and the failure, there is a reward. At the end of the path of pain, you witness a memory, the Pale King and the Hollow Knight together, in a moment of tenderness. The king reaches out to his child, shows affection, treats it like a son rather than a tool. This is the moment that cracked the vessel, that gave it something to feel, that doomed the entire plan. The path of pain earns its name. It is painful to traverse, yes, but it is also painful in what it reveals. Let the White Palace fade from your thoughts. Its challenges are for another time. Tonight, there are no saw blades, no spikes, no tests of precision. Tonight, there is only rest. The charm system is one of the most elegant design elements in Hollow Knight, allowing for tremendous customization without overwhelming complexity. Charms are equipable items that modify your abilities in various ways, and there are 45 of them in the game, each with different effects. Some increase your damage, some extend your range, some give you new abilities entirely, like the power to shoot projectiles or leave a trail of fire behind you. You have a limited number of charm notches, starting with 3 and eventually reaching a maximum of 11, so you cannot equip everything at once. You must choose, and your choices define your playstyle. A player who prefers aggressive combat might equip charms that increase damage and attack speed. A player who prefers caution might focus on defensive charms, extending invincibility frames or increasing healing efficiency. A player who loves exploration might prioritize charms that reveal the map or attract the game's currency. The same game can feel very different depending on how you build your character, and because you can change your loadout at any bench, there is no permanent commitment to any particular build. You can experiment, adapt, find what works for you. Some charms can be combined for special effects that are not immediately obvious. The Weaver Song charm summons 3 small weavers that attack enemies, dealing low damage but generating soul when they hit, and combining it with Grub Song causes the weavers to generate even more soul, creating a passive resource generation build. The Defender's Crest creates a cloud of stench around you that damages nearby enemies, and combining it with Glowing Womb causes the hatchlings spawned by that charm to explode on contact, dealing more damage. The Shape of Un charm allows you to move while healing, transforming into a slug-like form during the focus animation, and combining it with Quick Focus creates a mobile healing build where you can dodge attacks while recovering health. These combinations reward experimentation and game knowledge, giving veteran players new ways to approach challenges they have already overcome. The fragile charms sold by Leg Eater are powerful but risky, breaking when you die and requiring payment to repair. Fragile strength increases your nail damage by 50%, a massive boost that makes combat significantly easier, but losing it at a crucial moment can be devastating. The Grim Troop content added the ability to upgrade these fragile charms to unbreakable versions through Divine, a member of the troop who will eat your fragile charms and transform them into permanent upgrades. The cost is enormous, 15,000 GO for unbreakable strength alone, but the investment is worth it for players who want the power without the risk. The soundtrack of Hollow Knight deserves special attention because it is one of the finest video game scores ever created, composed by Christopher Larkin, with a sensitivity to mood and atmosphere that elevates every moment of the game. The music understands something crucial. Silence is part of music. Many areas of Hollow Knight have no music at all, or only the faintest ambient tones, and this silence makes the music, when it does appear, feel more significant. It is not constant background noise. It is a statement, an emotional cue, a signal that something important is happening. When you enter Greenpath the first time, the music swells with life and energy, strings and piano creating a sense of wonder and discovery. After the muted silence of the crossroads, this music feels like a revelation. The City of Tears has one of the most memorable tracks in the game, melancholy and beautiful, piano notes falling like the rain that gives the city its name, creating an atmosphere of gentle sorrow that you could listen to on its own and feel something. The boss themes are intense and driving, filled with urgency and danger, each one reflecting the character and fighting style of the enemy you face. The Radiance's theme is epic in the classical sense, building and building layer upon layer of instrumentation, creating a wall of sound that makes you feel like you are fighting something truly divine. The sound design extends beyond music to every action and environment in the game. The slash of your nail is crisp and satisfying, a sharp sound that makes combat feel impactful. The healing sound is soft and warm, a gentle chime that provides audio feedback for a crucial action. The ambient sounds vary by area, creating distinct audio identities for each region. The fungal wastes have a wet organic sound, squelches and drips, and the occasional burst of spores. Deepnest is filled with unsettling sounds, chittering and clicking, and the rustle of things moving in the darkness. You could close your eyes and know where you are just by listening, and this audio design makes the world feel more real, more immersive, more alive. Let the music of Hallownest play in your imagination now, soft and distant, like a lullaby from another world. The City of Tears theme, perhaps, with its gentle piano and its sense of beautiful sadness. The Grim Troop content added an entirely new dimension to Hollow Knight, a questline that exists somewhat outside the main narrative, involving a travelling circus of nightmare creatures drawn to dying kingdoms. The troop arrives in Hallownest after you light the nightmare lantern in the Howling Cliffs, setting up their tent in Dirtmouth, and their presence transforms the sleepy town into something stranger and more theatrical. Grim is the master of the troop, a being of nightmare and flame, elegant and terrifying in equal measure, speaking in riddles and poetic obscurities that hint at purposes you cannot fully understand. The questline involves collecting flames from around Hallownest, feeding them to the Grim Child, a small companion charm that grows stronger as you progress. The flames are found in specific locations, requiring exploration and combat to obtain, and each flame advances the ritual, brings you closer to the climax. The boss fights against Grim are among the best in the game, demanding and beautiful in equal measure. The first fight is a dance, a precise exchange of attacks and dodges that feels almost choreographed. Grim's movements theatrical and elegant, his attacks demanding but fair. Defeating him requires learning the dance, matching his rhythm, becoming his partner in destruction. Nightmare King Grim is something else entirely, one of the hardest bosses in Hollow Knight, a relentless assault that leaves no room for error. The Nightmare King is faster, stronger, more aggressive than his normal form, his attacks coming in rapid succession, requiring constant movement, perfect timing, absolute focus. Many players consider this the ultimate test of skill in the game, harder even than the absolute Radiance, and defeating him is an achievement that marks you as a true master of Hollow Knight's combat. The troop questline offers a choice at its conclusion, a decision that reflects the game's approach to morality throughout. You can complete the ritual, allowing the cycle to continue, Grim consumed by the nightmare so that a new Grim can be born, the troop moving on to another dying kingdom to repeat the process. Or you can banish the troop, ending their presence in Hallownest forever, receiving the carefree melody charm instead of the fully upgraded Grim Child. Neither choice is clearly right or wrong. The ritual serves a purpose, but that purpose is obscure. The banishment brings peace, but at the cost of destroying something ancient and strange. The game trusts you to make the decision and live with it, without telling you what you should have done. Your body is so heavy now, so warm, so completely relaxed. The Grim Troop has packed up and moved on, leaving only silence in their wake. The Godmaster Content represents the ultimate challenge in Hollow Knight, a series of boss rushes that test everything you have learned, demanding not just skill but consistency and endurance. The Hall of Gods allows you to practice against any boss you have defeated, fighting them on different difficulty settings, from attuned, which matches the boss's normal encounter, to ascended, which increases the damage you take, to radiant, which is one-hit death, any damage killing you instantly. Completing bosses on Radiant difficulty is extremely challenging, requiring perfect execution, and many players spend dozens of hours mastering individual fights before they can claim victory. The Pantheons are the main attraction of the Godmaster content, boss rush challenges where you must defeat multiple bosses in sequence without dying. There are 5 Pantheons in total, each longer and harder than the last, culminating in the Pantheon of Hallownest, which contains every boss in the game and takes over an hour to complete. The Absolute Radiance waits at the end, a harder version of the already difficult Radiance fight, with new attacks, faster patterns, and less room for error. Defeating her requires mastery of the game's systems, perfect execution of everything you have learned, and the reward is the true ending, the void rising up to consume the Radiance utterly. The God-Seeker is the central figure of this content, a being who worships power, who seeks gods worthy of her devotion. The God-Seekers came from a distant land, travelling far to find divinity, and they found Hallownest and its powerful beings. The God-Seekers' philosophy values only strength, only power, only the ability to destroy, and this philosophy is subtly critiqued by the game. The gods she worships are not benevolent, they are simply mighty. Power alone does not deserve worship, and strength without wisdom or compassion is hollow. The God-Seeker's fate varies by ending consumed by the void in some conclusions, her search for divinity ending in darkness. The game's approach to difficulty is worth discussing, because it is often cited as a barrier to entry, while also being praised as one of the game's greatest strengths. Hollow Knight can be punishing, especially for players new to the Metroidvania genre, or to challenging action games in general. Some bosses will kill you dozens of times before you finally succeed, and the lack of difficulty settings means that everyone must face the same challenges. But the difficulty is fair. Every attack can be dodged. Every pattern can be learned. When you die, it is because you made a mistake, not because the game cheated. This fairness makes victory meaningful. You did not win because you ground for levels or found an overpowered item. You won because you got better, because you learned, because you persevered. The satisfaction of defeating a boss that seemed impossible is proportional to the difficulty, and easy victories would feel hollow in comparison. The difficulty is also optional to some extent. The main story can be completed without facing the hardest challenges. The Pantheons, the Radiance, the Path of Pain, these are all optional content for players who want to push themselves further. Players who find the game too hard can still experience most of what it has to offer, can still explore Hallownest and discover its secrets and piece together its story. Players who want more challenge can find it in abundance. This scalability allows Hollow Knight to appeal to a wide range of players, from casual explorers to hardcore challenge seekers, and everyone can find their level, can engage with the game in the way that suits them best. The value proposition of Hollow Knight is almost absurd when you consider what you get for the price. The game launched at $15 and offered more content than many games costing 4 times as much. The base game alone provides 40 to 60 hours of gameplay for a thorough playthrough, and then there are the 4 free content updates, each adding significant new material. Team Cherry could have charged for this content. They could have released it as paid downloadable content and players would have happily paid. Instead, they gave it away, expanding the game far beyond its original scope, rewarding the players who had supported them. The result is a game that feels complete, in a way few games do. No missing pieces, no content locked behind paywalls, no sense that you are playing an incomplete product. Hollow Knight is whole, finished, a complete artistic statement. Let the thought of value and completeness settle into your mind. You have received so much from this game, and it asks so little in return. The community that has grown around Hollow Knight is a testament to its quality, passionate and creative and enduring. Years after release, players are still discussing the lore, still sharing fan art, still creating mods and challenges and new ways to experience the game. The subreddit is active, the Discord servers are busy, the fan theories continue to multiply. This community engagement is not manufactured. It is organic, arising from genuine love for the game. Players care about Hallownest, care about its characters, care about its mysteries. They want to understand everything, to explore every corner, to share their discoveries with others. This kind of passionate community does not form around mediocre games, it forms around masterpieces. The speedrunning community has embraced Hollow Knight, competing to complete the game as quickly as possible, discovering tricks and glitches that allow skipping large portions of the map. The any percent speedrun category, which allows any method to reach the credits, has records under an hour, a remarkable achievement for a game that takes most players dozens of hours to complete. The modding community has created numerous additions to the game, from quality of life improvements to entirely new content, and Team Cherry has been supportive of these efforts, not restricting modding and acknowledging popular mods. The game's code is well structured, making modding relatively accessible, and this has contributed to the active modding scene that keeps the game fresh for veteran players. Your mind is drifting now, floating between waking and sleeping. Let it drift. Let it find its own way to rest. The influence of Hollow Knight on the gaming industry has been significant, raising the bar for what players expect from Metroidvanias and demonstrating that small teams can create expansive, polished experiences that rival or exceed the output of major studios. Since its release, there has been a surge of games in the genre, many of them clearly inspired by Team Cherry's work, and players now expect more depth, more content, more quality from similar games. The success of Hollow Knight proved that indie games can compete with major releases, that quality matters more than budget, that passion and dedication can triumph in an industry often dominated by massive corporations. Team Cherry's approach has been studied by other developers, their focus on polish and completeness admired and emulated. The development story of Hollow Knight is inspiring in its own right, a reminder that extraordinary things can come from humble beginnings. Team Cherry was not a major studio with unlimited resources. They were 3 people with a vision, working out of a small office in Adelaide, pouring years of their lives into a project they believed in. Ari Gibson and William Pellon had worked together before, creating small games and animations, building the skills and the partnership that would eventually produce Hollow Knight. Christopher Larkin brought his musical talents to the project, creating a soundtrack that would become legendary. Together they formed Team Cherry and began work on what would become one of the most beloved games of its generation. The Kickstarter campaign launched in 2014, and the development that followed was challenging. The scope of the game kept expanding as they added more content, more areas, more bosses, and what was originally planned as a smaller project grew into something massive. The game was delayed multiple times, pushing past its original release date, and backers waited, sometimes impatiently, for the game they had funded. Team Cherry kept working, kept polishing, kept adding content. They refused to release something they were not proud of, even when the pressure to ship was intense. When Hollow Knight finally launched in February 2017, it was immediately clear that the wait had been worth it. Reviews were overwhelmingly positive. Players were captivated. The game sold far beyond expectations, eventually moving millions of copies across multiple platforms. This success was not guaranteed. Many Kickstarter projects failed to deliver on their promises. Many small studios collapse under the weight of ambitious projects. Team Cherry succeeded because they had talent, vision, and the determination to see their project through to completion. They made sacrifices, worked long hours, pushed through difficulties that would have stopped lesser teams. The story of Hollow Knight's development is a reminder that masterpieces do not come easy. They require dedication, sacrifice, and an unwillingness to compromise on quality. The legacy of Hollow Knight is still being written. The game continues to find new players, continues to inspire discussion and analysis, continues to influence the industry. Silksong, the sequel starring Hornet, has been announced, and anticipation is immense. Team Cherry has proven themselves, and expectations for their next work are sky high. But even if Silksong never releases, even if Team Cherry never makes another game, Hollow Knight would stand as a masterpiece. It is complete in itself, a finished work of art that needs no sequel to justify its existence. The story of Hallownest is told. The kingdom has risen and fallen. The tragedy is played out. What more is there to say? A masterpiece is not defined by what comes after it. It is defined by what it is, by the experience it provides, by the impact it has on those who encounter it. Hollow Knight provides an experience that is rich, deep, challenging, beautiful, and emotionally resonant. It impacts players in ways that stay with them long after they put down the controller. It is, by any reasonable definition, a masterpiece. The word gets overused, applied to things that are merely good or popular or influential, but Hollow Knight deserves it. This is a game where every element serves the whole, where nothing feels wasted or out of place, where the creator's vision has been realized so completely that the seams become invisible. This is a game that will be remembered, studied, celebrated for decades to come. Your body is so still now, so peaceful, so ready for sleep. The story of Hollow Knight is complete, at least for tonight. Let us spend these final moments in quiet reflection, letting the themes and images of Hollow Knight drift through your mind like leaves on still water. Think of the knight, that small figure with the white mask, wandering through the ruins of a fallen kingdom, one of thousands somehow surviving when so many others did not. It came from the abyss, climbed back to the surface, drawn by something it could not name, compelled to return to a place it had never truly known. The knight is you, in a sense. You are the one who explores, who fights, who discovers. But the knight is also its own being, with its own history, its own connection to this world. The ambiguity of the knight's nature is part of what makes the story compelling. Is it truly hollow, as the Pale King intended, or does something stir within it, some spark of consciousness, some whisper of self? Think of the Radiance, that moth goddess of blazing light, forgotten and furious, her vengeance consuming the kingdom that abandoned her. She is not a simple villain. She's a being who was wronged, who lost everything, who lashed out in pain and rage. Her infection is terrible, but it is also understandable. What would you do if everyone you loved forgot you existed? The Radiance represents the danger of forgetting, the cost of abandoning the past. You cannot simply erase history. It will find a way to return. Think of the Pale King, that complex figure, worshipped as a god, remembered as a tyrant, mourned as a father who made impossible choices. He gave consciousness to a kingdom and then sacrificed his children to save it. He loved and he destroyed, sometimes in the same moment. He was not evil, but he did evil things. He was not good, but he wanted to be. The Pale King represents the burden of leadership, the weight of responsibility, the terrible choices that power demands. Think of the Hollow Knight, that tragic figure chosen to save everything, cracked by a moment of kindness, suffering for centuries in a prison of its own making. It tried so hard to be what it was supposed to be. It endured so much for so long, and in the end, it was not enough. The Hollow Knight is a reminder that even our best efforts can fail, that sacrifice does not guarantee success, that tragedy can strike even those who do everything right. Your breathing is so slow now, so gentle, so ready for sleep. Think of Hallownest itself, that vast underground kingdom, beautiful and terrible, a monument to what civilization can achieve and what it can lose. The cities and the sewers, the gardens and the graves, the places of light and the places of darkness. All of it connected, all of it part of a whole, all of it waiting for you to explore. Hallownest is a character in its own right, as important as any of the bugs who inhabit it. The kingdom has a personality, a history, a presence that you feel throughout your journey. It is not just a setting, it is a participant in the story, shaping events, influencing outcomes, leaving its mark on everyone who passes through. The kingdom of Hallownest sleeps now. The dreamers dream their eternal dreams. The infection sleeps. The void is still. And you are drifting, floating on the edge of consciousness, the world growing soft and distant around you. The challenges of Hallownest are far away. The bosses cannot reach you here. The platforming sections do not matter. There is only rest, only peace, only the gentle descent into dreams. Hollow Knight is a masterpiece because it makes you feel something. It makes you feel wonder at its beauty, dread at its horror, satisfaction at its challenges, sorrow at its tragedy. It engages you completely, draws you into its world, makes you care about its characters and its story. And when it is over, it stays with you, a memory that does not fade, an experience that becomes part of who you are. That is what art does, at its best. It changes you. It leaves a mark. It becomes part of your inner landscape, a reference point for future experiences, a touchstone that you return to again and again. Sleep now. Let the world of Hollow Knight fade into dreams. The night stands watch in the darkness, silent and still, guarding your rest. The kingdom is quiet. The infection sleeps. Everything is at peace. Tomorrow perhaps you will return to Hallownest. You will pick up your nail, face new challenges, discover new secrets. The game will be there, waiting for you, ready to provide whatever experience you seek. But that is tomorrow. Tonight is for rest. Close your eyes, let your breathing slow. Feel the weight of your body pressing into the bed, heavy and warm and completely relaxed. The story is over. The journey is complete. There is nothing left to do but sleep. Good night, little ghost. The kingdom of Hallownest will be here when you wake.